The HBO documentary miniseries, The Lady in the Dale, tells the story of Liz Carmichael, who launched the 20th Century Motor Car Corporation and created a car called the Dale. The story is crazy and very real because that car is at the Speedway Motors Museum of American Speed in Nebraska, and we are joined by the curator, Tim Matthews. Thanks so much for joining us, Tim. I see the Dale is behind you.
Absolutely, pleasure to be with you, and you're absolutely right. We have the Dale out of storage and here on the dance floor at the museum.
The dance floor is a pretty cool looking dance floor. Before we get to the car, let's get to Liz Carmichael. Certainly a charismatic and complicated transgender pioneer, as she's been described.
Sure, and somebody that seemed to know what people wanted to hear, and just a polarizing figure, to say the least. It's interesting to watch the documentary. Having known about the car here in the museum, we've had it in our collection since 1975. So to watch the documentary has been interesting, and just to kind of learn a little bit more about Liz.
Now, she was actually featured on Unsolved Mysteries in the late 90s. I mean, it's a story that's had legs over the years. She passed away, what, in 2004?
That's absolutely right. Yeah, that's for sure. After kind of a tumultuous life, spending some time in jail and kind of running from the law a lot of the time, and leaving some things behind, such as the car behind me. Just a very interesting saga.
Yeah, now, she was involved in many scams, but there's a lot of debate on whether this was a scam or she was quite genuine with the Dale and getting this thing on the road.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. The idea started with a man named Dale Clift, who was somewhat of an inventor and motorcycle enthusiast, and he decided he could build a car with motorcycle parts that would be fuel efficient. Of course, this was all during the mid-1970s when the fuel crunch was happening, and cars were big and hungry and using a lot of fuel. So, a motorcycle-powered car seemed to make a lot of sense. And Liz, like you say, there's a lot of debate whether or not it was a genuine attempt. The people that worked on the car would say it absolutely was. They believed in it, and they'd go back to work for her today. It's really interesting.
How far did it get in its development? Again, it's a three-wheeled car. How many prototypes were there?
There were only 3 prototypes, the 3 cars that we are aware of. There's the one behind me, which is referred to as the space car. It was the first prototype that we're aware of. It appeared on The Price is Right, and it was the car photograph for all the early brochures. There's another car that lives at the Peterson Museum in Los Angeles, California. That car was the vehicle that was actually in the lobby of the 20th Century Motor Car Company, and that was the one you could see from behind ropes. You couldn't get too close to it, but that would be the car you'd see when you were going to lay some money down to purchase one. And then there's a third car, the drivable car, which is in a private collection, and that one hasn't been seen for quite some time, but it does exist.
A lot of incredible claims about this vehicle. Not only was it, it had great fuel economy, but it could, the crash test, what was it, something like 50 kilometers per hour, no damage? Is that for real?
Yeah, exactly. A brand new space-age plastic that was indestructible. I mean, some outrageous claims, that, you can see why people, bought into it. I mean, I would have maybe lined up too to buy one of these things, after hearing some of the things that were said about it.
And people were actually plunking down deposits. It got that far, right?
That and dealerships, people were really excited about something so new. We look at the car now and we might think, geez, aesthetically, it's nothing to write home about. But, it's got a 1970s aesthetic that, back in that time period, it was new. It was forward thinking, and I could see why people bought into it. Absolutely.
Hey, it would turn some heads today for sure. Now how did you get it?
What's that?
How did you actually acquire it?
Oh, that's a great story. Bill Smith, he is the founder of our museum, and he's also the founder of Speedway Motors. He acquired everything for the most part in this museum. It's a 3-story, 150,000-foot facility full of all kinds of treasures. And he acquired things the old-fashioned way, before eBay and before the internet, just through friendships. He'd call, and people would call him almost daily, send him letters. Well, the car behind me was right after the 20th Century Motor Car Company imploded, they were trying to hide some of the objects that were in the shop. So basically, this car was stuck on the roof of a radiator shop, of all places, in LA. A fella named Dean Moon, who was a hot rodder and someone who provided speed parts to folks, he saw it. He was intrigued by the story, so he purchased it off the roof of that shop. And there are these wonderful photos of Dean Moon taking it off with this giant crane and putting it on one of his race car haulers.
And now it's in its new loving home.
Oh, exactly. Yeah, here it is in Lincoln, Nebraska. Yeah, that's right.
Well, of course, we're stuck on this side of the border during this crazy pandemic, but we'd love to come visit your museum. In the meantime, we can do a virtual tour, so we'll link up your website at chh.com. Curator Tim Matthews, thanks for sharing the Dale with us.
You bet, Bob. Thanks for having me.